Oh, see, I didn't even look ready. Happy Friday, everybody. We're excited to have you back for episode 25 of Disruptors Live by Founderist. Oh, and Carter, what are you sipping on over there? That looks
Oh, it's
delightful.
got a matcha latte, of course.
Oh my God. You know what? I have been on a matcha latte kick myself. This
Yeah,
is
I found out Costco like serves the matcha in the monster container, but it's like the high quality Japanese. I mean, if we start talking about Costco, we're just gonna geek out on that all day long because let's be right, we're all millennials, right?
Oh my God. It's funny because I have the same matcha from Costco at home.
That's good stuff.
So, it's just a magical place. Last Costco thing, and then I promise everyone I will introduce Carter. I was on a walk with some girlfriends this morning, and one was telling me about a new relationship she's in. And she was talking about how they went to Costco together and they didn't even need to define the relationship because she knew it was pretty much exclusive at that point.
Wow. That's yeah.
That's pretty serious, right? You go to Costco together, you split the bill. Whoa.
Yeah.
So I should stop going on first dates to Costco?
Maybe, Andy, maybe.
I mean, it depends on how quickly you want answers to those types of questions. It used to
Uh,
be like put together flat pack furniture, like it was the IKEA thing, right? And now it's Costco. We've evolved.
We have evolved. Us
Looking
poor
at TVs.
millennials, there's something wrong with us. So anyway, drop us a comment, I guess. So if you like Costco, this is not sponsored by Costco, but hey, if you're listening, we're happy to chat with you guys and talk about your matcha more. So before I go down an entire rabbit hole, I want to introduce Carter Rain, who is a lifetime entrepreneur and dragon tamer, which we need to know more about that. He's spent the last 6 years as a coach to leaders, founders, and executives around the world, and his favorite activity is solving the dark and scary problems that powerful people face. Whoa, I love that intro. And bye. Okay, so tell us about the dragon tamer part.
Dragon tamers. Well, I am a champion of metaphors. If you spend in more than 5 minutes with me, you're going to hear lots of metaphors. You'll probably hear several today, but one of my favorites is about dragons. So I kind of take it to a medieval times, like almost the Viking stuff or things you've seen in like The Witcher. Like imagine that. And the type of energy that I put off is the type that kind of would fit into an old-timey tavern. If you imagine like everyone's in the tavern, everyone's talking, almost like in Shrek, right? And then I walk in and carrying behind me this very large bloody axe. And most people are like, whoa, and they kind of give me a little bit of distance and space. But then I go and sit at the bar, and anyone with a dragon problem usually walks up and talks to me straight away. So dragon problems oftentimes present in the way of trauma or past issues or family dynamics, just something that seems to be terrorizing their village, if you will. And so for a long time, I worked in a more traditional sense. I used a lot of therapeutic techniques and would help people slay their dragons.
Mhm.
But before long, I realized that having a dragon on your team was much greater than having one in the ground. So my new favorite thing is helping people tame those dragons because I've found that people's greatest weaknesses are usually their greatest strengths. If you have suffered from an addiction or a mental disorder and you're able to heal that, you can usually be a leader in your field and help other people that are dealing with the same thing with a lot more authority than if you just say, "Oh yeah, I kind of thought about struggling with that once."
Mhm. Wow, I love that analogy. I'm like picturing it. I'm picturing you in the Shrek bar, walking in there. And what brought you into the coaching space? Have you always felt like this was something you wanted to do? And give us the background a little bit.
I kind of stumbled into it. I had a lot of people that said, "Wow, you'd be a really great therapist." But because I had been unschooled my whole life, I was worried that going to school might not be the best idea for me because
Mhm.
sometimes systems and I don't get along. So I was like, becoming a therapist is going to be a lot of school, a lot of work, a lot of time. What else could I do? And someone was like, "Oh, just be a coach. It's like being an unlicensed therapist." And I was like, "Cherry." So that was like about 6 years ago when I was like, I'll be an unlicensed therapist. I very quickly found out that doing things haphazard, there's a reason for licensing and all of that. So I was doing normal, like coaching one session at a time, very beginner stuff for the first year and helping people solve the problems I knew how to solve. I had been a freelancer since I was 13, had multiple businesses that I scaled and sold, like web and graphic design businesses, marketing companies, and agencies. So I'd just kind of been doing it on the side my whole life. So I helped people with their freelance businesses. And then I decided I wanted to go bigger. So I found the smartest person in the room and asked them to teach me. And that was how I ended up kind of transforming my coaching business and leveling up for the past 6 years to where I can service the people that I do today.
Very cool. And what are the types of people who end up coming to you that have these dragons that need healing?
Well, a lot of times people figure out how to work with their dragons, how to cope, how to mask, how to put things away. I'm sure you have experienced this, Abby, in several of your businesses that I know about. You have to dig a little
Oh,
bit to find them because they normally manage to shackle them and put them in the basement. But I have a very good nose. So when I walk into someone's life and start to ask a few questions, I usually smell smoke. And I'm like, oh, you have a dragon in the basement, don't you? And typically, the larger the structure that they have built, the larger the business, the larger the public profile, the bigger the dragons are. And so
Mhm.
most of the time, people aren't afraid to talk about those things. I think Brene Brown has done a great job of that and kind of exposing shame and how we deal with those things.
Mhm.
Um, she's done a great job finding out that people don't really care to talk about it. Like, it's fine, but they just need to know that when they introduce you to their dragon, to their darkness, to their skeletons in the closet, that you're not going to run scared or react badly. So by carrying a significant amount of authority after having tackled many dragons and tamed even more, it's helpful to just walk into someone's life and start asking the really hard questions. Like, hey, you want to be successful this year? What's going to stop that? What if you fail? What if you're not? And kind of asking the scarier questions typically leads people to want to talk about it more. So the type of people that I usually work with are those that have very large dreams and realize that if they don't deal with their dragon, those dreams probably won't come true.
And do you notice some themes? Like, are there similar dragons going on in people's lives that you work with?
Usually they're all born out of fear. So
Mhm.
that would be a theme. The number one thing that people typically leave our work with is the confidence they need to execute on those plans. So typically, fear is one of the big enemies of confidence. A lot of times, it's just a matter of how they view themselves. So if you think you're the kind of person who can only charge $40 an hour, guess what you're going to charge? $40 an hour.
Right.
Probably even 35, so you feel like everyone else is getting a swinging deal. But I really love issues around money are one of my favorite things to tackle because I think money is a wonderful and beautiful game. And at the end of the day, it's just energy and it just moves around this earth. I heard a really neat parable about money the other day.
Mhm.
It said that this traveler goes to a town and he stays in a hotel for a night. And this hotel has a 24-hour refund policy. So if you don't like it for any reason, you get your money back. And I'm thinking somebody's going to scam that, but that's not the point of the parable. Uh, so he pays the hotel owner $100 and then he goes to sleep. The hotel owner, when he receives the $100 bill, says, geez, this is exactly how much I owe the baker. So he runs over to the baker and he pays him the $100. The baker goes, oh my God, this is exactly how much I owe to the, florist. So he runs over to the florist and so on and so forth. Around this town, this $100 bill travels until the next day, the traveler says, hey, I didn't sleep that great. I'm not crazy about this hotel. I think I'm going to leave and I'd like my $100 back. Lo and behold, someone had owed the motel owner that $100 and had given it back to him. So he hands it back to the traveler and the traveler leaves town. And at that moment, no one owes anyone anything. And yet no one has any money that they didn't have before the experience. So fun things like that just share a new side of money, that it's not this scary thing. It's not bigger than us. It's a part of our lives. And the more we can welcome it into our families, into our realities, into our relationships, the better our lives will be.
Oh, for sure. Andy, you got anything over there? I don't want to steal the show.
Remember, I'm the other way. Abby always has her camera flipped back and forth. She always points the one direction and I'm the other direction.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So this way.
I'm on the left. Yeah.
Got it.
So Carter, could you walk us through maybe like a use case? You probably can't describe actual specific clients, but maybe the story of a person, the kind of blocks that they had and how long you guys worked together and maybe kind of what they went on to do. Maybe
Yeah.
a shameless testimonial.
Oh, shameless testimonial. I don't think testimonials should ever have shame. If you're good at what you do, rock it.
Oh, I love that.
So let's see. One of my favorites was I worked with a realtor, and he had decided to build his entire brand around being top level service. And he wanted to sell multi-million-dollar properties. So within our first meeting, and about 10 minutes in, I gave him a challenge. I said, hey, I'm not sure the type of people that want to buy $1 million properties want a servant. Because a lot of times, if you have that kind of wealth, you have a lot of people around you that behave like servants. Yes, sir, 3 bags full. And what you want is someone who's capable of leading you. And that's true for a lot of the world's elite and the top 1%, is that when they get big, they spend their entire life being big for others. And it's hard for them to be able to settle into a relationship. And a relationship with your realtor is pretty intimate. You're going to make some of your largest financial investments with them. And if you feel like they're groveling or doing service, you don't feel like they're going to come to bat for you, that they have the authority to be able to get the best deal. So just working with that realtor, we changed his entire slogan. And I won't tell you what it is, because that would reveal who it is. But it's epic. And the next week, he signed a $90 million deal. And he called me and he said, 100% it's because of what you said. I showed up to that meeting. I gave them an offer. I offered to lead them, to be their, champion, to be their bulldog, to get them the best deals. And because I showed up that way for them and used my new slogan, everything changed. He's like, I have no doubt a week ago I would have lost that deal.
That's amazing. I mean, I feel like thank you for sharing that. And
Sure.
For people listening who are like, whoa, hold on, what could I achieve? Because you make it sound so simple, but obviously I'm sure there's a lot of work beyond just being like, okay, new tagline, newfound confidence. And another thing I wanted to ask you about too, which I made the title of this whole live stream, was about the idea of freedom.
Yeah.
And how you're saying it's everyone's birthright. And I think as entrepreneurs, I can probably say that why we got into this is a bit to have that freedom, so Andy can, gallivant around the country and go see who he wants to see
Gallivant.
and still run our business together.
Yeah.
So tell us about kind of that philosophy of freedom and, how you see maybe some people are working towards that and maybe it's hard to attain sometimes.
Sure. The best way to approach this. Freedom has been a theme of my entire life. I've had several instances where I've ended up in mental bondage, in actual physical bondage, in different situations that I began this quest for freedom. What does freedom mean? And I think the most important thing to anyone who's been in any form of captivity, sometimes that's just an abusive relationship, but when you've been in captivity, the question becomes, do I deserve freedom? And I found that unequivocally, yes, everyone deserves freedom. I feel like people are kind of like plants. So here we go on another metaphor analogy.
I'm
tangent.
excited. Hit us with it.
But plants need certain things to grow, and different types of plants need different things to grow. You can't see it in my background here, but I have lots of live plants in my background, and I have a snake plant and a ZZ plant, and I have some hybrid, like succulents. But they all require varying lights of light and water and varying, environments, temperatures in order to thrive. And I think that we are all unique in what we need to survive. But if we have that, we'll do the one thing that we do best, and that's to grow. Because if we have the freedom to grow, we can become everything we were meant to be. Because plants and trees, they don't say, hey, like how many fruits do I need to produce this year? Exactly what of this do I need to do in order to be valuable to you? They just grow. They grow, they produce, they reproduce, and they create the world that we live in, and they create beautiful symbiotic relationships with everyone that need them. So freedom is individually defined for each person. For one person, it may be freedom from a relationship, being able to not just have to try and grow in that crack in the sidewalk, but be planted into a place where they can really stretch themselves and grow tall. It might be to be able to grow in a different environment entirely. It might be moving. It might be a different job environment. It might be a lot of things. So I think freedom is really unique to each person. But I think once you have it, you do become the best version of yourself. I have had people ask me for the craziest things in the course of coaching. Somebody one time asked me if I could help them to get laid. And I said, sure. And then they were very specific, and they said that they wanted it to be with someone that they actually exchanged money for. And I was like, well, that is going to be a challenge because most places that's illegal. But
Right.
you understood that the underlying message, the underlying request that they had was that they wanted to feel free in their sexuality and their expression and what they believed that they could acquire in this world. And we were able to accomplish that without breaking any laws, I'm happy to say. But
Good.
understanding that what they wanted wasn't bad. And that's
Mhm.
one of the fundamental things that I use in my coaching and my mentoring and relationships is to remove the word bad from our vocabulary. Because I think, oh, to want money is bad. To want fame is bad. To not want kids is bad. There are a lot of things that have been labeled by that in our culture and our society. But I think ultimate freedom is just being able to go after what you know you need and feel no shame, no bad, no regrets, no guilt around that, and ask for it with abandon. And sometimes that just means you need one person to say, that's cool. I love that about you.
Mhm.
And being able to do that usually invites people into a space of freedom, and they recognize everything that they've ever wanted. And when you recognize what you want, oftentimes you'll be provided what you need to go after it. And I think that that's a beautiful experience.
Well said. I feel motivated just listening to you talk about because I think we're all honestly like, on our own quest in some way, like you said, to find that freedom. And what you were saying about things being labeled as bad, I think there are a lot of pressure, at least sometimes I even feel it too, on business owners where it's like, oh, it's bad if maybe you take this day off or do this thing this way or try something else. So, how would you kind of approach that conversation with someone in business, when they're worried, like, oh, is it bad if I try this or do that?
I mean, I usually ask why,
It's a good
because
question
getting,
to ask.
yeah, down to why something is happening, why they want something to happen. If you can get down to someone saying, I just want to, or I
Mhm.
feel like it'll work, or my gut says, then let's go for it. What's the worst that happened? It doesn't work. But I
Right.
think if you examine why, if your intentions are correct, your actions will rarely be wrong. So if you can get all the way down to someone's intention, a lot of times it's, oh, because Uncle Steve told me to. And I'm like, well, is Uncle Steve as successful as you want to be? And they're like, no, not really. He's kind of a bum. You're like, okay, then maybe let's not take Uncle Steve's advice.
Poor Uncle Steve.
I know. If anyone has an Uncle Steve out there, I'm sure he's great.
Hopefully.
So Carter, in so many occupations, people are in a situation where their success, let's say financially, comes from time for money. And so you said you come from a background of working with creatives and freelancers, especially. If there's one thing that I've heard a billion times in my career from my business partner and everybody else, it's always oh, you need to value your time more. You should be charging 3 times what you are. And then it's like, cool, Karen, but you haven't paid your invoice. Like, or do you want me to double yours? That would be great. But actually, I've got a parable, and if you haven't heard this one, I think you're really going to like it.
I'm
So,
ready.
a man walks into a cafe, and I guess he lived in Madrid and in Paris, but they always say a man walks into a cafe, and Pablo Picasso is sitting there at the window, and he walks up and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Picasso, would you draw me a picture? I'm a huge fan." And Picasso pulls out a napkin and a pencil and does a little outline of a silhouette and takes a little bit of time, hands it to him, and he says, "Okay, that'll be $20,000." And the man says, "Well, it only took you 30 seconds." And he says, "No, actually, it took me 30 years." And when you think about the fact that you have these people that cultivate this talent, whether they're a photographer or a barber or whatever, where you're setting the amount of time or money that you are exchanging, how do you help people unblock their ability to, first of all, know their worth and have kind of that self respect? Because sometimes it comes in the form of turning down business that isn't serving you or getting rid of people who are taking advantage of you when you may be dependent on that cash flow. You can tell that I'm diving in very deep because this is almost self serving for myself and many of our clients.
That's okay, man.
But
You had me on here. I'm happy to give back.
Live coaching session. Go.
Yeah,
but I
that's
know
pretty much
you've
what
got
we're
a
going
lot of
on
those
today.
in your background and yourself included. So curious what you think about people that work in service industries that have to figure out how much to charge.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of my great secrets that you guys are going to get for free here today. Are you ready for it?
Whoa. Ready.
Okay. So there are two different types of people, right? And I don't know how to get this in the frame. Here we go. So there are types of people over here that say, this is how much I'm worth. This is how much I'm worth. This is how much my product is worth. This is what it'll do for you. Features, benefits, features, benefits, features, benefits. And then there are these people over here. And they actually take themselves out of the equation, because you will be able to charge the most when you realize that nothing you do is about you. The cement truck doesn't say, oh, I'm really cool. My cement has better cement than the other guys. I pour it so flat. I have such a great truck. You should see the little dice I have hanging from my mirror. He says, do you want your future home to be a sinkhole? No, then you probably should hire me, because it's not about him. It's not about his cement. It's not about what he brings. It's about someone's future home. And then if you get to someone's future home, you're like, yeah, and your future kids, you know, when you're putting your kid to bed, do you want their bedroom to just fall off the side of the house? No, then I should probably pour your foundation. He will be able to charge monumentally more than the other guy. So if you want to stay small, continue to try and rack up certificates, you know, like even reviews or other examples of things. You can have degrees, you can have your own features and benefits list, you can have a website that makes me dizzy to look at. But as long as you're talking about you, you're not actually going to unlock the greatest amount of wealth, because I have the wealth that you're trying to acquire through your services. And if you want it, the best thing to do is to give me something. And most people are unbelievably vain. So when you make it about them, you've already given them something that they didn't even know they could ask for. And that's for the entire exchange to be about them. When you make it about them, they'll pay you whatever they want.
I always feel like it's a matter of never backing down on the level that you're at in your experience and your abilities too, because there might be somebody who is charges $400 or $500 an hour as a web designer, but then they start teaching other people and they're doing the equivalent of $50 an hour.
Yeah.
Or if you do graphic design, but you also do photography or something like that, where people think that the thing I've been doing for less, or the thing that I do that isn't my main thing or what I'm known for, I need to battle to get known for that. And if you just bring the same perceived quality, people already know that you're good at the thing you do. If you do
Yeah.
the other thing equally as well, and you know that, you got to shoot for that same level of clientele, or you're working with the wrong people.
For sure.
And I hear that a lot from entrepreneurs that come to us to work with founderists, you know, where it's like, you know, maybe there's something, oh, I pitched someone on this, but now they're asking me like all these questions, or they want to talk to a past client, or they looked at my reviews and now they have questions. And I even had someone text me this the other day of like, you know, someone just totally scoffed at my price. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And, you know, my answer was, well, they might just not be the right client for you.
Yep.
You know, would you guys both agree with that?
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. You have to say no more than you say yes if you really want to be playing in a different field. The analogy I use for that one, I'll keep it short, is don't give a homeless person a Ferrari. And there is a real reality to the fact that the value of the services you provide will be determined somewhat by the ability of the recipient to utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be the best coach in the world. You can be the best, you know, anything. You can be the best plumber. You can be the best painter in the world, all these other things. But if you give that Picasso on a napkin to someone who has no wall to hang it on, what will be the value of it? They'll probably use it to wipe themselves.
Mm.
And so you have to understand that if someone has not spent the time and the energy and the resources and the money and all of those things to develop and prepare a place for the value that you're bringing into their life, then it's probably not a good idea for you to be giving them something. So you have to reassess the people that are receiving it. And that's all comes down to whether or not you believe you're worth it. Like that's an internal process of,
Mm-hmm.
do I know, based on my past experiences, based on the amount of training I know I've had, based on my past client reviews, like, do I know based on all of that that I can deliver at this level? Yes. Okay, then let me find someone who can receive at this level. Because if there's not equity on both sides of the negotiation, somebody is getting undervalued. And most of the time it ends up being you, because we've put this whole framework around money that says that money is the ultimate deciding factor. So if you're the one that stands to benefit the most money, immediately everyone assumes you have to give the most, which is just not true.
It's a really good point, especially when you get into these like higher priced coaching packages or, with the matchmaking that I do, it can have a higher price point where, I've even fallen prey to that. Where I'm like, oh, well, you paid me this, so I am available Saturday night. You call me whenever,
Yep.
So, it totally resonates with me. And I would bet a lot of people who are listening as well.
I hope so.
Carter, I wanted to ask you, what is the vibe for 2023 for you? Any exciting things going on? Any big goals? Let's throw it out there to the universe.
I'm going on my first cruise, which will be pretty exciting. Wanted to do that for a long time.
Where are you going?
We're going to be going to the Dominican.
Ooh,
Nice.
I know.
I'm very jealous. It is too cold here in Denver. I need a beach vacation.
It is. Yeah, we escape to warmer climates often because Colorado gets very cold, especially with all of our freak snowstorms, the snowpocalypse that keeps happening again and again. Let's see. Business-wise, I'm really excited because I have always valued efficiency. Anytime I've been placed into a system, I used to have an 8 to 5 job for a hot minute, and they actually had to move me into different departments because I would make it so efficient. They were like, this department now runs without you. Why don't you go fix theirs? So I got moved around a lot because anytime I see a problem, I try to help it to move faster because then I think we have more freedom, which is one of the reasons I don't bode well in a standard 8 to 5 job, is because I can get my job done by 9 a.m. and then I'd like to go home or go golfing or do anything else. And they don't like that for some reason. So I am really excited because I've been refining my process. So I've worked with the types of people that are charging hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of my coaches charges $1 million to work with her. And so I have worked with people at these levels to be able to provide services with excellence. And typically when someone works with me, they work with me for 6 months and we work one-on-one and we do whatever they need to get to the goal that they've set. And a lot of times what I have found is people don't have 6 months. They don't have 6 months that they're willing to wait to make those numbers. They don't have it to leave that relationship. Whatever it is that's really been a burden on them has probably been smoking up the basement for a long time. So I've worked with a couple of the experts in the field and actually condensed my process down to where it can be done in a weekend. We did our first pilot of this in 2022, brought in a private chef. I had additional practitioners that came in to support the work. And we actually managed to heal someone from their bipolar schizophrenic diagnosis, which according to most people is not done. And I don't say that lightly because people are like, yeah, but it was probably just an up week. But no, seriously, I have found time and time again, and I've worked with people that have mental health diagnosis from all over the spectrum. And each one of them, if you spend enough time and you're willing to reconcile it, you can almost always see 100% reversal of that diagnosis, because a lot of times it comes from our mind. And so by reprogramming it and doing other things, you can get it back. And I don't think it needs to take 6 months. Now, 6 months is very nice. I don't know if you've ever experienced G-force, but that's about what it feels like to go through the transformation process in 2 days.
I think that would almost stress me out. I'd rather have 6 months.
Yeah, and for each their own. I've just met a lot of different people. Most of them are men that would prefer to just get it done. They're like, yeah, I've been waiting on this for 6 years. Let's do it. Let's do it in 6 hours. And so I really love working with people to a high level of transformation in a short amount of time. And I have different offerings that I can do, in a couple of hours in an afternoon, but I really just appreciate being able to deliver value quickly. Don't wait for 6 months for all the goodness to come through.
Right. And where can people reach out to you if they want to try one of these weekend G-force, do it all with a private chef?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. I manage it. I don't have a team or anything else. Like, it's me if you hop on there. I write a lot of articles. I'm on live streams such as this one. I do a lot of different things on LinkedIn. It's just under my name, Carter Rain. I do have a website, it's carterrain.com, but the best way to get in touch is just through LinkedIn. You can send me a message. We'll set up a time. A lot of coaches force like an application process, or you have to buy some of their other stuff before you do anything else. I don't really work that way. I'll have a 20-minute conversation with you. If we can't find a dragon that's worth the amount of investment it takes to get this kind of transformation, then find another coach. There are so many coaches, so many. I go to any networking event in Denver and I'll meet 5. But I can tell you with zero amount of arrogance that they're not all worth their salt. So take your time, interview a couple of them, find the ones that you know without a shadow of a doubt can get you where you want to be, and then commit to that fully, and you'll see massive amounts of change.
I love that you say that too, because I always say the same thing with matchmaking as well. There's so many of us out there, and it's all about how do you vibe with that person? Do you feel safe sharing with them? You know, I don't think there are enough people out there helping business owners, anyone else, just elevate their lives and achieve that freedom you were talking about. So.
Absolutely. The last thing I will say on that note, though, is I am picky with who I work with. I don't work with very many people at once. I know that you probably have also experienced this with matchmaking, because if you're my client, you can text me, you can call me, we'll meet up, we can go places together. I've flown around the world for clients before. And when I provide that level of service, I like to do it with just a few at a time. So you have to be serious. If you just want to you be my magic 8-ball, should I quit my job? Find somebody else. There are career coaches that are excellent at what they do. But if you're like, hey, I've made $70,000 a year for the last 25 years, and now I'm serious and I'm ready and I have an idea and I'm going to get behind it, and I'd like to make $1 million in the next 2 months, let's do that. Because I've done that with clients and it's worth it.
Awesome. And if you guys scroll down also below this video, you can just click and go right to Carter's LinkedIn. Make it easy.
Boom. All of the information is there.
Yeah, technology, crazy. And Carter, any other final words of wisdom? Anything fun you'd just like to share before we let you enjoy your Friday?
I feel like we didn't get too much into the humor today, and I don't really have like quippy jokes. I do have a lot of fun. I don't think that it's worth doing anything. Let's see. My favorite piece of sales advice is sell like a prostitute, because I've never found anyone who can sell better. And the reason that they sell so well is because they understand that what they're selling isn't sex. So really look into what you're selling and why you're selling it, which kind of goes back to Andy's point about like, how do you sell something for a different price than someone else? Because everyone knows competition on pricing is a race to the bottom.
Mm-hmm. But we found your new tagline, sell like a prostitute.
Sell like a prostitute. Yeah, if I wanted to be a sales coach, that'd be a great thing. Sometimes I do sales work with my clients, but sales coaching is a whole other animal. And I know that there are a lot of people that enter into that space. There's a lot of scarcity, especially in the commission space. So the last thing I would say, and this is a lesson that I've been working on with myself for the last few months, is to apply unconditional love to everything you do. And that sounds like real weird and woo-woo for the end of a talk like this, when we've talked about so many different things like dragons and sex. But I think when you love yourself, you love where you're at, you love your fears, you love everything about what you're doing, you're going to see it grow, because it's the thing that you as a person need. Plants might need water and sunlight, but all you need is unconditional love. And when you apply that to yourself first, it overflows to the world around you, and you will make a difference. So if you're like, wow, that was a lot of information, you talked really fast, I don't know what to do, just take a little time today and love on yourself, and you'll find exactly where you're supposed to be.
Oh, I think that's the perfect way to end our Friday live stream and kick off the weekend, even though it's not entirely the weekend yet. But why doesn't every day feel like the weekend? Give yourself some unconditional love so that it can.
Sure does. I love it.
Awesome. Well, Carter, thank you again. And go down below, click, connect with her on LinkedIn, with him on LinkedIn, and we will make it happen. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a good Friday.